Today is the day I'm going to do a tutorial showing you how to make these quick and easy mini albums using a 6x8 paper collection. Are you ready? Well, let's get started. So today I'm going to show you how to make these mini albums. These are very easy. We're just going to use a 6x8 paper collection, and at the end of it, you're not going to have very much paper left. For these two, I used the 6x8 paper pad from Simple Stories called Crafty Things. Now, the interesting thing is one of them is a very crafty mini album, and the other one I made it more generic, so it could be used for anything. There's not really any mention of any crafting in it. So it's a good way to use your paper collection, maybe for a different theme than what was intended. As I said, I used just what was in the collection, except for in here, I used the wording because everything else was craft related. It came from a Paige Evans thickers um, pack, and I used some enamel dots. And of course, I used ribbon and seam binding and things like that from my stash. Now, there are three different ways, probably more, but I can think of three different ways to bind these. This one I used a cinch binding machine. And as I've said before, if you don't have a cinch binding machine, you can take it to your local office supply store and ask them to bind it for you. They usually don't charge a very high fee. I guess it depends on the size of the rings. I also have used these planner rings. I was given them and I decided let's try and use them for some projects. So I used planner rings and I think they came out pretty cool. Another way you can bind these is using these kind of binder rings. You can usually find these at even a dollar store. Or these are scrapbooking ones. These are by far a better quality. They're easier to open and they're just nicer. But if this is what you have, that's what you have. So all you would need to do to use these is poke 3 holes if you want 3 rings uh, in all of the pages, and there you go for that. I do have walkthroughs on my channel for both of these, and I'm not going to go through that right now. I will go a little bit later, maybe if I show you the pages, but I do have walkthroughs on these. For today's mini album, we're going to be using the 6x8 paper pad called Happy Travels. Now you have to know, I did get some 6x8 paper pads from Simple Stories during a Black Friday special. So they were random, and I got 2 sets. So I got 2 of the Happy Travelers, 2 of the Crafty Things, etc. I also did pick up some stickers. The stickers that I'll use for this can't remember if they match the collection, but the ones I use for Crafty Things didn't necessarily match the collection, but you can mix and match the stickers. The color stories are sometimes all the same. In addition to the paper collection and the ribbon and whatnot, I did use my die cutting machine and some scrap cardstock. So even if you don't have the exact same dies, you could cut different things, or you could just cut rectangles. So for instance, I had a die that cut this frame. This frame measures 3¼ by 4½, and it also had the piece inside that I've used in different places. But if you don't have that, I give you the measurements of the rectangles that I use. Generally, they're all rectangles or some squares. And you can just cut squares and rectangles from the paper or from your stash from solid. So this is a scalloped rectangle. It comes from this is 3 by 4¼ It comes from another die set. This is, I don't know if you can see, it's a dotted, what do we call that? Rectangle die. It's 3 3/8 by 4 3/4, and sometimes I'll stack them. Like I'll put that down and then put this on top of it. But you could see you could just take a rectangle and add another rectangle on top of it. So that's what I used. I also had a couple of some heart dies and some tag dies. I just went through my dies and made a couple. Now you could also use Cricut or Silhouette and cut some of these out, or as I said, just use rectangles and whatever embellishments you have in your stash. I'm going to very quickly talk about supplies. So I use the Designer Dries Clear Glue from the Art Glitter Company. I put it in this container. This is refillable. I find it easier to squeeze this than squeeze that, or even that 4-ounce bottle. But um, this does empty out fairly quickly. So I do use that. Some people use Barely Arcs glue. You can use whatever adhesive you want. I also, for the cover, use the permanent double-sided adhesive from scrapbook.com. You could also use the sheets. Scrapbook.com sells them, or you can get the Suk Wang brand. I mean, you could use liquid glue if you wanted to, but I find it covers the covers really good, and I'm trying something a little different in this tutorial, so stay tuned so you can see that. I also use a paper trimmer bone folder. This is a #2 Dress Your Craft, Dress My Craft non-stick bone folder. I love this. It's got a good bevel here, and it's got a rounded bevel here. I just think it's a good all-purpose one. And you know, if you get every once in a while, you might be furnishing something with a little bump in it. You can sand this down. Use a really fine grit sandpaper, but you can sand that down. A couple of scissors and a scoreboard, although there is only one case of scoring and you could just fold it instead, and I'll show you that as we go. And then finally, I do have, it's a little different than my normal cutting guides because there's not as much cutting and folding. This is more of a step-by-step guide on how to make the album. This is available in my coffee shop for a minimal fee. If you guys are familiar with me, or even if you're not, I do post the cutting guides in the coffee shop, which is a separate place aside from YouTube, and I put the link in the description box. You just go there and you pay it with, um, it goes to my PayPal. Um, and then you can print this out, or you could just keep it on your computer and don't print it out. You'll get confirmation that you've purchased it. There is a link to download it. You download it onto your computer, and then you have it forever and ever. But if you have any problems, let me know. I'm not really technical, but I can figure some simple things out. This has lots of pictures in it, lots of pictures, and it tells you the things that I've used. And like I said, it's step by step. However, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to purchase it, that's okay. The video tutorial will take you step by step and do it. Some people just like having it written down, and then that way they're not tied to the computer screen. They can just follow a piece of paper and check off the steps after they've done it. So it is entirely up to you. The one thing I will tell you is this does give you the labels, not that it's any big deal, but I did make labels because I was finding I was uh, sort of doing it for a couple of different paper collections and thought, you know what, these labels help me out. So we're going to use these, and we're going to start tearing apart a paper pad and separating these, and I'll talk all about that while I do it. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to start pulling the book apart. I actually already took it apart just to make it easy. And I'm going to figure out what I need. So my criteria is I'll need 7 pages, and that's what I'm starting with. You could do 6 pages, you could do 8 pages. It depends on what you have left, but we're starting with 7 pages. And I'll need 4 pages for the cover. I'll need 2 for each cover, one for the front and one for the inside, the back. So 4 pages. Then out of what's left, I'll use some for die cutting. I'll cut apart some. And then inside each of the 7 pages are going to be tags. And I'll talk about that as we do it. So let me pull out pages for the covers and the pages. Now for the pages, I'm going to try to have ones that the orientation is this way, because we're going to fold this in half. So this one has the tags. I'm not going to use this, so this is good for my pages. This is another good one for the pages. This one, I mean, and you could use this if you wanted to for the pages, and this will just be one of the pages that you're going to end up covering with a big a big photo mat. And then, you know, if it's upside down or sideways, it's not the worst thing in the world. The colors are still going to be the same, but to start, I know I can use that for pages. So this one has writing. It goes this way, but you know, if you turn it upside down, that's okay. No, nobody's going to even think twice about it, especially once you put photo mats and other elements on it. So I'm going to use this for another one of the pages. This one too, although this side would work also because it really goes in any orientation. So I'll put that down. And of course there are 2 per page. Now this one, I don't know, I could use for a page, but I'm going to use for the cover just because it seems like I have a lot of pages and I need some for the covers. And I could use it either way because we're going to have to cut it apart. But you know what I'd like? I think I'm going to use this for the cover. I just think it would be fun. So that's just going to be one of the covers. And then I've got this. I like using my stripes for cut aparts. I love stripes and cut aparts, but I also like where there's words for a cover. So this will probably be the back cover, and then I'll find something else for the inside back cover. Well, maybe one of these sides. Oh yeah, so this is what I'll do. This will be the front cover. This will be the inside front cover. This will be the back cover, and this will be the inside back cover. All right, so I've got my covers figured out. Let's continue with our pages. And don't forget, you get two to a two to a page. All right, I've got this one, and this could be one of the ones I use for a cut apart or for die cutting. But you know what I like about this is it's already got elements to do sort of a layered look. I'm going to put it in cut aparts, but I might cut that apart for the cover. All right, there's the second one. All right, let's do some more pages. I have 4 pages, 5. Oh, the other side 6, and then the other side of that. So there's 7 pages. All right, I've got my pages. I've got my covers. So now I need ones for die cutting, cut aparts, and tags. So I already pulled out the cut apart. So here is 1 page of cut aparts. And I use the cut aparts as accents on the pages. So I like that one. I am going to take one of this tag page, and use that for cut aparts. And then I've got 2 more pages of cut aparts. Now, in this collection, I have 2 pages of the 3x4 cut aparts. In the, was it this collection or was another one? You don't always get the same number of pages of cut aparts. I'm going to put this down as part of the cut aparts, but you could also use this as photo mats. For instance, I don't know that I would ever say good luck. I mean, I would say good luck, but I don't know that I would ever use that on a page. No, that's not the one. But I could take a rectangle. I'm trying to find one of the right size. Maybe this. Maybe this. And just layer it over my cut apart and just cut it 3x4 and use that as like a photo mat. I guess I would cut this as at 2.5 by 3.5, and that is just a layered photo mat. See how it looks on here? That looks nicer because the background. And then you cover the words. So you might not ever use "You mean the world to me," but you could use the background as a cut apart. Of course, you're going to cut this apart. The other thing is you might want to have a cut apart that is a flap. So you would just cut across this way, and then this would be glued down, and that's the inside, and you can add photos in there. So I'm going to put that in the cut aparts. And I think I'm good with the cut apart. So I'm going to take that and add that to this one. And my cut aparts is done. All right, now I'm going to figure out tags and die cutting. All right, so the other side of this, in the tags, let me show you a tag. So I did tags two different ways in my original books. One, I just layered on white cardstock and left the back white. This one, of course, I stitched. But this one, I just kept the way it is and stitched around it, and there is the tag. And even though this is a different orientation, that's okay. So that is how I do my tags. So knowing that, and you can get two tags out of each one. This, of course, was lined paper. It was a 6x8 paper that was lined, but that looks okay. So knowing that I could have a tag like this, and that would be fine. And I think that's what I'm going to do with this one. Okay, so knowing that, here is tags. All right, so I like this for die cutting. So I took one. I like that for die cutting. I like stripes, and I think it adds a nice little accent for die cutting. And then tags. So even this would work fine as a tag. So there's a tag, there's a tag, and there's a tag. So you need at least 4 for tags, because if we're going to have 7 pages, we'll need 7 tags. And so you can have them, you can get 2 to a page. You also could use any plain cardstock if you wanted to for the tags. You can actually have tags that are 2 pieces, like this one. I used this for the top and that for the bottom. So when we're done and you see what scraps are left, you can make some tags out of that. So tags are sort of like the last thing I'll do, because I can figure out tags from my scraps. Okay, so there we go. I've got 4 pieces for tags. I've got 2 in whatever's left over for the die cutting. And plus I'll pull out some, like I pulled this out from my stash. This matches nicely. Oh, oh, and look at that. The cut aparts are self-explanatory. I already talked about the cover and the pages. So all set with that. Now we're going to talk a little more about die cutting. Let me clean this up. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about, before we get to the die cutting, the cut aparts. So again, I cut some of these down to 3x4, but I also left some like this so I can fold them if I want to. So that's the cut aparts. Now die cutting. I use frames, squares, and this is a stitched square. This is a square with a scalloped edge. I I use white cardstock, and I also go through my stash and find any in my scrap pile, any scraps. This does this match? Not really, but I don't know. Probably won't use this one, but I go through and I find anything that coordinates and die cut that also. If I don't use it here, I'll probably use it somewhere. So I just cut different things out in different shapes. When I start this, I really don't know exactly what direction I'm going in. I'll just pick and choose from the pile. But you will have a menu of how I did each page. So you can go through and see, okay, I did 5 scallop squares with rectangles that go inside it. Or 5 uh, die cut stitched rectangles. And then with that, I use a piece that, oh, let's use a scallop. Like the scallop could go inside it. So that's what I do when I die cut. I do it uh, without really knowing exactly, but like I said, you'll have a menu. I also have a couple of tag die cuts, and I have this fishtail. I also, where's my other little thing? Have this cutie patootie that I use sometimes. It's just a nice little accent piece. So if you don't have any stickers or cut aparts that are small, you can use your die cuts and do that. So that's what I do. In my coffee shop, that tells you some of the dimensions of the dies that I use. Most of them are not available because most of them are 5 years or older. But you know, like stitched rectangle, that could be any manufacturer. Um, and squares. And again, even if you don't have a die, you can just cut a square and you're good to go. And the measurements don't have to be exact. I mean, this one is about 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. It doesn't have to be, it could be 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. What you do need to pay attention to is what kind of photos you'll use. So if you have 2 by 2 photos, these kind of things will work. If you have 3 by 4 photos, then make your cut aparts a little bigger than 3 by 4. So just pay attention to the size of the photos that you use. All right, next we're going to start making the cover. All right, so for the covers, I've already cut down the 2 pieces that we're going to have on the inside to 4 1/8 by 6 1/8. So you'll cut down 2 of the covers. These are for the outside covers, like this is the front cover, that's the back cover. This is for the inside cover, 4 1/8 by 6 1/8. And I do use these scraps, so obviously hang on to them. Not that I thought you'd throw them out. All right, next thing I'm going to do is use my double-sided adhesive and cover the paper. Now, a lot of you guys, if you follow me, when I'm making mini albums, a lot of times I cover my chipboard with double-sided adhesive. In this case, I'm covering the paper. This roll of double-sided permanent adhesive is 6 inches wide, 6 inches tall. So it will fit both of these two. Try to get one right after another. This makes it easier to cut. So there we go with that. I'll bring this little cutting board and put it under here and just carefully cut that off. Oh, I'm sure there are things in my description box that are linked to scrapbook.com. That is where I get that big roll of double-sided adhesive. It lasts me for a long time, and I make a lot of mini albums. So it's the most economical thing, but if you only make 1 or 2 here and there, then by all means buy the sheets. All right, so there we have it down there. Gonna grab my bone folder and burnish. All right, let me put this one aside and take another one. All right, so I have 2 pieces of chipboard that measure 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. Peel off the backing on this. I'm peeling off the backing. It's sticky. And you can, well, I'm just going to take this and put it on here, centering it as best I can. Okay, and I'm going to grab scissors. If I had non-stick scissors, that would be fabulous, but I don't. So these are going to stick. So I'm going to cut the corners off, staying about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the chipboard. All right, these I will toss, but if you feel the need to save them, you can. Just put them on that backing paper. All right, now I'll take my bone folder and coming up from the bottom, I'm going to just burnish this so it's at a right angle on one of the long sides and then fold it over and voila. And do the same here and voila. Then I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm going to push in. You'll see there's a little triangle of the paper at the top that's sort of floating in midair. I'm going to just sort of push it down and in, and I'll take this and push it up and in, just so it'll fold nice and easy. You know, if you don't do this, you'll end up having like a pointy corner, and that's okay. Just round it with your bone folder. All right, and then I'll go through and I'll take the short end, make it a right angle, and then fold it over and burnish, and do the same with this side. Now, this is a different method than I've used. I've always said you don't need a lot of adhesive to adhere the covers, but boy, that makes a nice cover, doesn't it? Voila. And then I'm going to take one of these pieces that I cut down to 4 1/8 by 6 1/8, and I am simply going to glue this on top. So I'll go around the perimeter with my glue. I stay about 1/8 of an inch away just because I don't have a steady hand, and that's as close as I can get to the edge. Zigzag it, and then center this on. I like using liquid adhesive for something like this because this way I can move it if I need to, so I get it centered on here perfectly. I'll put this in my hand just to see if any glue. There's a little glue that came out there. And I wonder how I get sticky hands. All right, there's our first cover. I'll do this one real quick. Fold this up. So what do you think about this method of using double-sided adhesive? The reason I started this was because I was running out of glue and it was cold and winter, and there's no way to get the art glitter glue because, as you know, it only ships when it's warm. But to be honest, it wasn't the end of the world. Let me make sure. All right, that's right side up. I took a chance and had it come in winter when it was like 30 degrees, and it did freeze one day, but my glue didn't freeze because it was inside a nice warm van. So I know some people don't ship it during the winter. And if you're in like the frigid north, especially this year, then you might not want to take a chance and just stock up or get a different glue. But I just am used to the properties of the glue from the Art Glitter Company, and it's just what I like to use. But it doesn't matter. You can use whatever you like to use. So anyhow, it was during the winter, and I said, let's see if I can use my double-sided adhesive because I had a good supply of that. And there we go. All right, so there is the back cover and the front cover. So I'm going to put these aside and I will decorate them when I decorate everything. But there we go with that. Now we're going to make pages. All right, you ready to make pages? Simple. We take the 8-inch side and put it at the top of the scoreboard and score at 4. I mean, pretty easy. There is a page. You could also just take your paper and fold it. I'm making sure everything's lined up. And there's a page 2. That's why I say you don't necessarily need a scoreboard. I've got it out. Might as well use it. So I will do the rest of the pages. And as I said, you don't need 7. If you want, start with 6. And if you have any left over, you can add it. Of course, you have to add it before you cinch it, or I guess you can add it if you do planner pages. And you can add pages that are not 4 by 6 later on. Like you could take a cut apart and fold it and bind it if you wanted to do that. So there's lots of different possibilities here. But again, to start, I'm taking 7 pages and just folding them in half so they're scored at 4. So I will fold and burnish the pages. And then I'll decide what order I want these pages to go in. Like I have got these two blues. I really don't want those next to each other. I mean, you could. And here's my inside cover. So I want something to coordinate with that. I could do this because that looks nice, or I could do that. Let's say I did this one. I don't want that. Then the next page could be pink. And then I could do this because there's pink in it. And then I could do this because there's this muted gray green. And then I could do this. Does that match with this? Yes, it does. So there we go. So now what I'm going to do, if you're using a cinch or the planner discs, is I'm going to go ahead and bind this now. It just makes it easier to bind and then decorate rather than, it just makes it easier to do because now we'll have the coil here and I don't want to necessarily decorate something. Like I know I did it on this page in this book. Let me see if I can find it. Like here, I glued this on and then I cinched it. So there's holes in this photo mat, which isn't a big deal. You wouldn't have noticed it. But if you had just like this, the photo mat, I did bind it first, and then that photo mat has the holes. If I had moved it over an eighth of an inch, I would have been good. So I just find it's easier to bind it and then decorate. All right, now what we want to do with our pages is I like to notch this because we're going to have tags in it, and I just like the look of how, if the tag is sitting where it should be, you've got that little round thing, and I just like the look of it. You don't have to notch it if you don't want, but I am going to notch it. And also, oh, for this one, I stitched around the pages, just around all four sides of, no, I stitched around the two sides and the bottom. If you're not going to do that, you need to glue the bottom. So we're going to do the two things. We're going to notch and we're going to attach the bottom. To notch it, either you could take a circle punch and punch it, or they do make, oh, it's called a thumb notch. You know what? I might do that. And I'm being daring by just estimating where the center is. And then I'm just going to add a bead of glue to the bottom. Again, if you're stitching, you don't need to glue it. But if you're going to use a cinch, you need to glue the bottom. And you don't need to glue the sides, but I'm gonna. And the reason you don't need to is because when you put the cinch coils in, that will hold anything you put in the pocket. But the reason I'm gluing the sides is just in case you cinch like 3 and 3 or 2 and 2, then you might have a gap. So it's just, we're gluing the bottom. Let's just glue the sides. So do that to all 7 of the pockets. Do a thumb notch, glue the side and the bottom. You guys, I am no expert when it comes to a cinch machine. I just fake it till I make it, pretty much. For me, I'm going to have 10 coils. You could have 10, you could have 6, you could have 2 and 2 and 2, or you could have 3 and 3, whatever. For me to figure out where the center is, and I mean, I could just measure, but I'm going to take a scrap of paper that is 6 1/4, and I'm folding it in half, putting it on here, and matching that up where it says center. So I know this is centered on my machine. I make sure I'm all the way to the back. That's the one important thing, is make sure you're all the way to the back. And there, I have 10 holes. I will do the exact same to the back cover. Making sure it is centered on there. And there we go. And now with my pages, so now this is a little smaller. This is, the pages are 6 inches. I cut this down to 3. This is a 6-inch piece of paper. I find where the center is. Make sure they're all stacked nice and neat. I'm just going to check that one more time. Center, we're good. Look and double check, make sure. I don't have to worry about the orientation of that. All right, I got holes in there. So I'm going to take my cinch rings, I'll put it on the side. Put my pages in. Put my front cover in. And then back cover. Sometimes in my mind I have to go like this to see, okay, is that going to be right? And it is. Thank goodness I did this with the words the right way. I almost messed it up. Okay, so now I know I've got it in. It looks like I have a lot of room on here. And yes, I do, and I will. These are big binder coils. If you ask me, if I forget, I'll put it down in the description on where I pick those up. But you take it, you have the open part flat up against the edge, and then you smush it. That is beautiful. Beautiful. And I take my back cover and flip it around, and there we go. And I can move this big machine out of the way. I had a mini cinch. I'm sorry, the sunshine's coming in again. I had a mini cinch. I had a mini cinch at one time, but it didn't give me, like if I wanted to do 3 and 3 coils, it didn't give me the opportunity to do that. So, so yeah, so I like this one. I don't have room for 2 of them. If I did, I would have kept the mini cinch because it's mini and it's easy and it's quick. But yeah, so that's why I did that. All right. All right, in the coffee shop files, I give you instructions on how to create these covers. I guess it's this one. And basically the formula could be the same. It's a long rectangle, a scalloped rectangle, and then a horizontal title, and then some elements up and down. So it's similar. I mean, not exactly. We're going to do it a little bit different. I was going to do that, but then I found something better that I like. All right, so first of all, we are going to use this. This is one of the scraps. So this is the exact same height as that, 6 1/4, but I want to cut it down. I don't want it 6 1/4. Let's do, let's take off 1/2 inch. So it's 5 3/4, much better. I save all these because you don't know when you'll need it later. Okay, so I cut this out of paper that I had in my stash, and it's pretty good, but I'd like to change the color a little bit. I'd like to be closer to this color. I know, maybe I'm being a little too picky, but so I'm just going to ink over this green. What color green would you call that? Like a dark avocado green, or even just an olive. So if I just ink around the edges with this iced spruce, I'm not putting it on, well, I'm trying not to put it on too heavy because I do want some of the green to show. I just want to change the color of it. And we're going to cover most of it up, so it's you know. And if you just use the colors you want to use. All right, so there's that. And I like that. That's much better. I'm going to take this cut apart and we're going to work with that. So this is 3 inches wide and this cut apart is 3 inches wide. I want this cut apart to be smaller. So I'm going to cut a little bit off the edge here. Just about 1/8 of an inch. So the cut apart is 2 7/8 by 4 right now. And I want to cut it down a little bit further. I want it to be, how big is that? 2 5/8. Yeah. 2 5/8 by 4. So I'm going to measure 2 5/8 from this side. And then I'm going to draw a line from those. Because this has a fishtail on it, I'm not going to draw over that fishtail. And I want that fishtail to be sticking out, so that's why I'm cutting it a little funny. I'm going to cut down on this long pencil mark I made. Then I'm going to take smaller scissors because I'm going to cut up on this pencil mark and then follow the fishtail. There's actually a little shadow to that fishtail. And I'm going to cut that. There we go. Happy travels. Happy travels. Put that in my pile. Put my scissors away so I don't lose them. And I suppose I could ink around the edges, but I'm not going to do that. All right. Let me grab some adhesive. Okay. That's all I'm going to do. It's simple. I mean, you can ink or not ink. You could add different paper. You could add this if you wanted to. I like the bold yellow, so I'm going to put this about a 1/4 inch away from the coils and center it top to bottom. Then I will pop this up, and the way I pop things up these days is I use a scrap chipboard, um, just for a variety of reasons, but most of all because I have it. So I'm just going to cut this with scissors. I could get my paper trimmer, but that's way 3 feet away from me. Perfect. That way it adds just a touch of dimension. Foam adhesive is great because it's lightweight. But yeah, chipboard works good, and I know I have it in my stash. So that is good. I'll add glue to here. So many other things you can do with a cover. You could add dimensional adhesive. You could stitch it. I could round these corners if I wanted to. But I just like the fact that this fishtail to the travels is hanging over. It adds a little something, something. I'm just going to glue it on. And I might go back in and add some enamel dots. I might see if I have any other stickers. I might fussy cut some of these flowers that are in the collection. Let's put this right here, center it as best I can. I might go back and add some glossy accents to maybe the flowers and the suitcase latches. I don't know, so many different things to do. But for right now, we're going to keep it simple with that just as it is. And there is our quick and easy cover. All right, now the fun part. To me, this is the fun part. Let's start decorating. So I'm going to take a cut apart. And this one says, "You're on your way." And I thought that's great for the cover. It actually had holes and I punched it out. I don't know why. I don't know that I like it, but it's what I did. Going to put that at an angle on here. Now, another alternative is you could add paper first and then add it on top of the paper. But I'm going to just glue this on. And you could just glue it on 3 sides and leave it so you can have a tuck spot, but I am not going to do that. I'm just going to keep this tutorial simple. Now I've got one of my frames, and like I said, you could just glue the rectangle below it, and that does the same thing as a frame. And I'm going to try to center this as best I can. And there we go. You're on your way. Now you can add a photo on top of that or you can leave it. It's up to you. Now the other side is going to have a scallop, so I'm going to put that, I guess I can put that straight. And then I was toying with the idea of putting pink because that way it replicates the pink. And then I was like, oh, but it's not the same pink. But you know what? It's not bad. My other choice is this, which this way I pull the yellow in. But I don't know that I like the diagonal. I think I'm going to just cut this down and we have the pink. Or another alternative is just put the white and then the pink on top. I'll just do that just because I'm lazy. But here, so this, instead of using a cut apart, I used just some paper, added my white frame, then added a little tag. Here I did the white and I actually stitched around the white and added a stitched rectangle frame. So you could do that. This is what shows in the instructions. Here is the cut apart, a white frame, a little tag, a sticker, the white scallop frame, and a stitched rectangle and another little tag. But let's just do what we have here because I like having the pink. I just like how that looks. I know I'm not going crazy with the glue. All right, so that's on there, and then I am adding my scalloped rectangle right on top of that. And you can add your photo to the top of that. And then I've got a couple of tags that came from that one sheet. Now, if this has too much verbiage and that's too off white on white, nope, not that one. This is you ready to go? Let's go exploring and let's explore. So I sort of like this because we're pulling in what we had on the cover as far as this. And it just sort of makes everything flow. You're on your way, let's go exploring. But does that show? I'll cover some of that. I don't like it. Or let's explore, let's go exploring. Nope, too redundant. You ready to go? You're on your way. You ready to go? Let's go exploring. Okay, I like that, except I don't want to cover up this verbiage. So I could put that up there. You ready to go? You're on your way. Nope. I'm going to cut this down. I like that. You ready to go? Let's go exploring. Like this could be, if you cover that with a photo, it could be packing your bags or we want that way. We'll put it over here. Or at the airport or getting on a train or something like that. And I'm leaving it open at the top, so if you do put a photo on here, you can stick it under. And then this one, let's go explore. I'm going to grab my scissors and cut it so it's actually a tag. And I didn't cut it straight here, so I'm going to cut it straight. And I cut some of these little hole reinforcers. Oh, yeah, let's do that one. I would have done pink just to continue the theme of pink, but I didn't have one cut. And yeah, I'll take my hole punch and punch inside there. Well, that took out the hole. Let's put that back on there. There we go. And then let's see. This orange is too orange. Do I have any pink? I think this is better than the bright pink. Don't you think so? So I'm going to use that. Or I could just use white. This is okay. It's not perfect. And you know, to change colors, you can just take some uh, ink. You could take alcohol ink, or you could take distress ink and wet it and put it down. Let's go exploring. So I just glued it on the bottom. You can add a photo, and we're ready to go explore. Now, I don't like that I have this on this side and this on that side, but it's too late. I can't do anything about it. I've glued it down. And if I balance it with some enamel dots or something over here, it won't be so bad. Okay, we've got one page in the books. Let's do another one. All right, let's decorate the back of page 1, front of page 2. So we're going to take a rectangle, and I wrote scalloped rectangle on the instructions. This is not scalloped, it is a stitched rectangle. It's dotted actually. I'm going to put it at a slight angle on the page. And I'm going to add a scalloped square to the top of it. Sometimes I'll do the lines on it one way, sometimes I'll do it on the other. And I'm going to put it up at the top as if it's like a Polaroid. So there is that. And I like how the colors on here match the background. Now this was from that page that had all the collaging in it, like this page. So I cut the elements separately and fussy cut them. So we're going to start with this one. So it says on our way, and I'm just going to glue it at the bottom. I don't want to make it really a pocket or a tuck spot, I don't think. But if I glue it on the bottom, then I leave it open. I'm going to add this, just because I can, below it, just to help pull this pattern back into it. And then this says wander. I mean, I've got the verbiage there. Actually, if I do this and actually add a little paper clip, and let's just do this, which is sort of cool because these paper clips sort of remind me of, you know, like those wayfinders. So we'll just add this like that. Okay. Okay, there we go. Wander. Now, maybe I'll add something else here. I can go back and do it later. On the original one, this isn't, this is from the Noteworthy collection, which is not this one. But what I did is I had taken one of these word strips and just sort of put it on one that's about the same size and just made it look like a shadow. So that's what the instructions mean. I'm not going to use this. And then also I did use a border strip, so we're going to have to do something else when it comes to that. I just like how the pink sort of replicates itself. Now on this page, I did have a pocket, but how can I do a pocket? I've already put the paper on. All right, this is how I do it. I'm going to take a pencil, figure out exactly where I need to punch a hole. Punch one hole here, one hole here. And then I'll take my scissors and just cut a line on the circle. And now this fits right in like that. Oh, I probably need another hole punch at the top, just a partial one. There we go. There we go. All right, and now I'll glue it on the side, on the bottom, and a little bit on this side just so it doesn't move around or anything. And now we've made a pocket. All right, now on top of that pocket, I have this, and this again was from the same sheet. I think this was on the bottom, but I did fussy cut this camera And I did fussy cut this "You Are Here," although where I put it I don't know, but I'll find it. So I'm going to glue this on the bottom. I'll glue this on the other side because this has the opening, and so we'll just glue that on the other side, but I'll have it and then I'm just going to glue the camera on the top of this, and I will find where I put that other little piece, and that's going to go here, and I might even staple it on. All right, so "You Are Here." There we go. All right, I will add cut-aparts into the pocket once I've decided what cut-aparts I will have left. All right, let's move to the back of page 2, the front of page 3. So first what we're going to do is take this so if I was using stickers, I would use the border strip stickers that come in so many of these Simple Stories collections. Of course, like I said, I don't have that. I'm going to trim this a little bit and just glue this to the top. I just wanted to add a little bit of color to the top to replicate the color on this page. And this piece, by the way, was the scrap from this inside front cover. It was the back of it. All right, now that we've got that, I'm going to add a scalloped rectangle to this page. And just glue that on. And to the bottom of that, all right, so I have one of the tags. You know what, before I put it on, I'm going to grab a little piece of ribbon. It's a tag. You can have ribbon. Sometimes I will tie it. Sometimes I will tie a little piece of baker's twine and a knot in the front. And sometimes I'll staple it once, twice, who knows. I'm going to put this on the bottom. I cut it a little bit just because I'm going to put it on an angle. I like this piece because it's got the colors that are on this page, but not all of them. I'm going to take this, which I fussy cut from another one of the tags. It's just a stack of suitcases. I'm just going to glue this onto the side here. I just wanted the suitcases on here because we have the suitcases there. And then this is a another element I cut from another sticker that is like a Polaroid, and it says Rush on it. And I don't think they mean the band. Do I want to staple it? No, I already stapled something, so I'm going to just glue it. Glue it to the top. All right, so there's that page. Now, I used some ink to color this because I wanted it to have some of the yellow or orange. A yellow orange, how's that? So I just inked it around the edges and the bottom. It's not the best. I probably could have taken some of the orange paper. Trying to find a piece to show you what I mean. This one, and made it a scalloped rectangle, but I didn't. Now this is from my scraps. This is from actually a Valentine's Day paper, but it was in my stash and I had cut it into a square, and I like it because it's got the same green as some of these suitcases. So I'm going to add that there. And then I've got this note that's going to go to the bottom right. And then I've got this little doohickey. Guess it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You know what? Let's punch it. It's Tuesday. And I'll just glue that on top of this note. All right, so there is the front of page 3, the back of page 2. We are moving on. The back of page 3, front of page 4. So for that, I'm taking a piece of just blue cardstock, and I am simply going to glue a cut apart on that. I love that paper, don't you? Now, it might be a little bit too big, this paper. And don't forget, you can still add a photo right on top of this. So instead of doing this, just grab your photo and stick it on there. If you have a smaller photo, you could put it right here. I'm going to glue this on, and it's not going to be at a diagonal. It's just going to be sort of justified to the top. So there's room for this. Let's take the scenic route, or route, I guess, depends on how you say it. And I'm going to add some white ribbon. I might have enough to tie it if I cut this down a little bit. And just glue it. All right, there's that one. And then for over here, I'm going to glue on a scalloped rectangle. More centered on the page than justified to the top. Coordinating cardstock, this blue is the same blue as the previous page here. And then this, that was from that one page that I cut apart, so that'll go down here. And then this came from a tag. It says, I love to travel. I am backing it on just another piece of paper that has this blue in it. I'm going to put some glue on the top, and that's going to go right here. If I can find one, I had a dark blue heart. Or how about a yellow? Nope. If I had a dark blue heart, I would put that up there. You know what? When I go through and I add other elements, I might see if I have a dimensional heart. All right, so there we go with that one. Let's do the back of page 4 and the front of page 5. So I am going to use this You Mean the World to Me cut apart. If you don't like it, use the back side. I just liked how the map color on here matches with that. And then I'm going to take a frame and put that right on there. Oh, no, no, no. No, wait, wait. Before I put this on, I was supposed to put paper underneath. So just a scrap of paper, it's about 5.5 by 1 1/4. I'm going to put this underneath. Oh, that was almost too late. So yeah, even I have lots of oops, especially when I'm following my own instructions. All right, so that'll go there. That'll go there. I probably should have cut this a little bit bigger. So 5.5, 1 1/4. And this is going to go over here. Let's put it towards the bottom. Love this orange on top of this color. It's beautiful. And then these flowers will go right on top of that rectangle. And let's add a little piece of ribbon. And that'll go there. The pink here and the pink there. And we're getting there. We're getting there. All right. Let's see what we're going to do for the back of page 5, front of page 6. Oh, wait a minute. I had some orange ribbon I was going to use. Oh, well. I'll use it somewhere else. All right. Back of page 5, front of page 6. We want a pattern paper square on the bottom left, a white scallop square top towards the right. No, this. That's what it is. A square on a scallop, and you don't have to do it this way. You could use 2 scallop squares or 2 regular squares. I just decided to make it look a little fancy. So this one goes to the top. This one goes to the bottom. And then I have this little tag that I made with a heart. And I'm just going to put that. Let's use a little piece of the orange ribbon. So this orange ribbon was a really bright orange, if you remember. Did I open it up? It was a little too bright. So I just added some brown ink and sort of toned it down. And now I need a little bit of string. Just to tie a bow around it. And there we go. And I will glue this to right about there. Okay, for this piece. So this is a cut apart. It says good luck. I'm going to glue white paper on top of it with as much of an even border around it as I can. Glue this onto this page at an angle. Then I have these stamps. And I'm going to just glue a cluster. Now, I don't know if you can see, but there's some schmutz on the page. Let's cover that with a stamp. There we go. All right, so there is that. The back of page 6 is going to have a white scallop. going to put it sort of justified to the top, just a little bit. And then I'm going to have a rectangle and then because I like the blue and yellow, I'm going to add this to the bottom left. And because I like the yellow stripe, doesn't matter, does it? This is going to go over on the front of page 7. Going to add a square scalloped a scallop square and another smaller regular square on top of that. Probably I should have gone with a different pattern than that, but I don't know. I couldn't find what I wanted. Now, behind this, I'm going to cut this down. So I'm just going to take off just a very little bit. And stack it onto here. And the reason I did that is because it gets a little lost. And now there's a border around the tag. So this is going to be glued to the bottom. Now you can add a small photo here. You could cover up the whole thing if you wanted to, or you could just tuck a photo into there, maybe journal on there. But anyhow, there is that. You know what? No, we're going to do this with take the cut apart, add it onto a white mat. So the cut apart's 3 by 4. This is going to be about 3 3/8 by 4 3/8. Really like the orange on there. I think it pops nicely. And I was going to use this, but I don't like it. You know, sometimes I do it, and then I change my mind when I look at it again. Let's see what we got. Oh, bummer. How about we cut this down? All right, so this is a rectangle. I'm going to just cut a smaller rectangle. This is 4 1/4, 4 1/2, just about. So I'm going to go 4 1/4. And it is 3 1/4. So let's glue this on. What do you think? So we're sort of doing reverse. I think it's okay. It's not the best, but it's okay. Alrighty. Yep. That goes over to here. And then I'm going to go find some enamel dots and some other things to add to these pages. All right, we're going to make the tags now. So I have 7 pieces, excuse me, I have 7 pieces of pattern paper, and I am going to use this tag maker. Now, you can make tags however you want. I found this is a simple and easy way of making them almost perfect. So these are 3 1/8 by 6. I'm putting my little tag maker. This came from Scrapping Under the Influence. I guess it's scrappingundertheinfluence.com. I'm using my mechanical pencil and I have my lead a little longer than you would normally have it. I have this, the 3 by 4 1/2. I mean, 3 is what I'm looking for. Centered on here because since it's 3 1/8, there's just a little bit left on each side. So I just have it centered, and I'm going to simply take my pencil and make a mark at the top and the circle. So that way I know I'll get that hole right every time. And then I'm going to grab another one underneath. I can cut 2 at once and just simply cut on that line that I made for both sides. Now some people are good about cutting one side and putting it on the other and cutting 2 even ones. I'm terrible at that. So that's why I got this tag maker. So I'll go ahead to the next step. I'll use the orange just because it's nice and, well, yeah, I'll use the orange because it's nice and dark. I am taking my hole punch and gonna punch the hole there. And so this tag is 3 1/4 by 6. Is this going to be too long? Yeah, I need to cut this down a little bit. I could have made it a little bit longer or made the tag a little bit longer, but either way, I'm just taking off 1/8 of an inch. And I will go ahead and glue this down on top of my blank tag. Now I'm going to just have the coordinating or the cards, the is that right? The pattern paper on the front. And I'm going to leave the back plain. Now you could, if you wanted to, put paper on both sides, but with the way that I cut the paper, I didn't have enough. All right, I'm just taking my scissors and cutting some off, leaving a good margin, 1/16 of an inch margin. I'll go ahead and make the hole again and add some hole reinforcers. I could do white, I could do any color I wanted to, but I'm going to do this mint green. And then, again, you could do the same thing with the ribbon. You could just have ribbon and tie it at the top. You can have ribbon. I'm trying to find the end of my ribbon. You can have ribbon and um, staple it. If you sew it, you can sew the ribbon on. I'm not doing sewing in this book. I'm just trying to keep this easy, but you certainly could sew. And if you were going to sew, you could just put the ribbon in and sew around the top so the ribbon stays. And now what happens is when you put the tag into the page, you've got that nice rounded the circle part, and it just looks nice right there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that up, and then we'll do one final walkthrough of the book. All right, and as I put in the other tags, I'll just give you an overview. So this one I just used a darker green hole reinforcer and just stapled the ribbon on there. I think I'll put this one in here. This one I put the ribbon on and I tied the ribbon with some white on white seam binding. I love to travel. I put rickrack on here and I use two staples. And after I stapled it, this glue is still wet. I hammered that staple down and I added some glue. I don't want people to get their fingers caught in that staple, but I like the color combination. Oh, let's do this one. Just use some baker's twine, some orange baker's twine. It looks a little bit long, so I will take off a little bit of it. All right, which one am I going to put the black and white one? I don't think it matters. I used black seam binding and added white tone on tone baker's twine. And also I do add a drop of glue right at the knot so it doesn't come undone. So that looks nice in there. And then finally we've got this one and I just simply tied that in a knot. So let's start at the beginning. So here we have our cover, and I like how the different ribbons and seam bindings sort of peek out at the top. And you can tie ribbon or seam binding there or add a dangle or whatever you want. I did add a couple of enamel dots down here, just ones I had in my stash didn't go with the collection, but I think they matched. And then I took some medium-sized enamel dots and put them inside the flowers there. I just think it added just a little dimension. I mean, we've already got that raised, and that's okay. If I had an extra one of these cut aparts, I would cut this out and raise that on top of that as well, but I didn't. All right, so we have this. There we go with that. That looks nice. I added this little tag just because I liked the blue plain. I'm not sure that it says you're just plain terrific, but I mean, it's cute. But anyhow, I added some other things to coordinate with that page. We've got that. Don't know that I like this, but it's okay. What do you guys think? I think the blue and the yellow and the green, I mean, there's other colors in the background here, but that all looks good. I like the color combinations here. I'm really not nuts about the pink. All I need to do is take an alcohol marker that's a light orange and go over that, and that would coordinate a little bit better. But you know what? It's not terrible. That's okay. You know, what I feel like I need on here is some words, something that says something. I'll just go through my stickers. Maybe I'll find another stamp. I mean, that says adventure, but I just feel like it needs something to make it pop. And there we go, a couple of tags. And I think that came out pretty good too. And finally, here is the back cover, inside back cover, and the last page. And I think that came out nice. And there we go. I didn't put anything on the back. I mean, if you've got stickers that coordinate with the collection, that's a totally different thing. But I was just using the collection to see what we could get out of it and how we could make a mini album. So that is it. That is how I used the Simple Stories Happy Travels 6x8 paper pad. I will be doing more of these 6x8 paper pads throughout the month of March. So if you have some simple stories, or it doesn't have to be simple stories, it could be anybody. Paper pads, I think this is a quick and easy way. I mean, the page is simple. It's just, you just take the 6x8 paper, fold it in half, make it a pocket, and then bind it in one of three ways. So it was fun to do. I hope you thought this tutorial was fun. Thank you so much for watching and have a fabulous day.